Okay, in Psalms 104 there, you look at verse 14, and just, excuse me, I gotta maybe have a little cola going here. So in verse 14 it says, He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. And the part I want to focus on there is herb for the service of man. And so God has made everything for us, and one of the things He's made is herbs. Now, herbs are plants, and herbs are, like plants are for eating, like as in vegetables, but I think herbs also refers to just the plants that we don't really eat normally. They're for medicine. And He's saying here clearly that herbs are for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. And I believe that all plants have a use, that God has, plants aren't here just for nothing. They're here for a use. And obviously different uses for different plants, and some plants have more than one use. And I just want to say this, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, so consult your physician if I give any kind of teaching that sounds like medical advice. So I think that all plants have a use, and obviously trees you can use for building and for fire and so on. But then herbs, just thinking of some easy ones, and maybe if you're not familiar, that mullein together with garlic is used for, if you have an ear infection. And echinacea, and actually in the Circola that I got here, there's echinacea. That's good for when you have a cold. Something like dandelion, people have used it for blood purifier, cayenne for circulation, different things like that. And when I say herb, a lot of modern day people think, well, herb, yeah, man, that's like a joint, or it's marijuana. No, there's more herbs than that. And God made marijuana too, okay? He made that plant. But I don't think He intended for it to be smoked, okay? Now, people make CBD oil. I haven't used it or anything like that, but I've heard it, has good benefits. So I think even for marijuana, there's a use, okay? But smoking is not the intended use, and getting high on it. In 1 Timothy 5, verse 23, the Bible says, Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for thy stomach's sake, and then often infirmities. And some people want to twist this and say this is talking about alcoholic wine. And this is just grapefruit, or grape juice, okay? Grape juice is good for your stomach, the Bible tells us. So there's different things that are good for different purposes, different herbs, different plants. In Romans 14, verse 2, the Bible says, For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Now, you could take this a couple different ways. But this is talking about somebody that's weak in their faith, right? And I think that they think it's wrong to eat meat or something like that, and that's why they're eating herbs. A vegetarian, for instance, they may think it's wrong to kill an animal. But notice it says, he who is weak. Okay, so this is talking about somebody that's mentally weak or spiritually weak that doesn't think they can eat meat. But I think you can also take this a different way, that if all you eat is herbs, then you will become weak, because the meat is important too, okay? And then a third way is, if you are weak, herbs are beneficial to you, okay? You remember the story about Daniel, okay? And his friends there. They didn't want to eat the king's meat for some reason. I don't know if it was sacrificed to an idol. Something wrong with it, right? And he asked the captain of the eunuchs, or I forget exactly who he asked there, and try it out for a while. We'll just eat this pulse, right? This lentils or whatever, and see if we look healthier than the ones that are eating the king's meat. And sure enough, they looked healthier, so they got to do that. So definitely a benefit to to eating vegetables and eating plant-based diet, but you don't want to just do that. You can turn to Isaiah 38. And while you're going there, I'm going to read for you from Mark chapter 5. Now, using herbs for your medicine, and obviously you can use herbs for your spices in your food. You know, I think just about anybody uses some kind of spices on their food. But when you start talking about using plants for medicine, then people start thinking you're a nut, depending who you're hanging out with, right? And, well, the Bible says herb is for the service of man. In Mark chapter 5, verse 25, the Bible says, "And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague." So, one of the things I want to bring out in this passage here is she had suffered many things of the physicians. And this happens today. I think my wife just told me about a story about this young girl. I don't know, she's about 13 or something, or 11. I don't remember. And she had cancer, and they're used to trying these different experimental concoctions, whatever they are. And you know, she's suffering many things of the physicians. And so far, I don't know if she's getting any better. Doesn't sound like it. And that's what happened to this woman. You know, she's going to the doctor, and she's spending all this money. You say, well, Canada, we don't have to. You know, we get it for free. No, we don't get it for free. We pay in our income taxes. Okay? So the Americans might think we have it good, but we have high income taxes. And, you know, she spent all she had. And even here, you know, there's people that get sick. Let's say they have a back issue. They'll go out of country, and it's not covered by our Medicare, and they'll spend all that they have, right, and hopefully they'll get better. But in this case, this woman, she didn't get better; she grew worse. And you know, our healthcare system is set up in such a way, it seems to me, that number one thing I can see that they're totally got the wrong mindset about is injecting people with a disease so that they won't get sick. That just doesn't make sense to me. You're giving somebody the disease so that they won't get the disease. Well, too late, you just got the disease. But the other thing that the healthcare system does is they treat the symptom, it seems like. They treat the symptom, not the cause, okay? For instance, if you have a headache, that does not mean you're low on acetaminophen or Tylenol, okay? That's not a deficiency of Tylenol. Or cancer is not a chemo deficiency, okay? Cancer is a symptom, and I think they should work at the cause of the problem, not just the symptom of the problem. And just like gallstones, if you have gallstones, that doesn't mean you have one too many gallbladder and they got to cut it out. Okay, that means you just have something that's not working right. Now, if they did it in time, they wouldn't have to cut it out. But in the old days, that's the things they would do. They'd either let blood out of your body. Hopefully, they would. The idea was that you let enough blood out of the poisoned blood so that your body could recoup, or they burn it, or they do things like that. And really, they're doing the same kind of things now. They're doing radiation, so there's your burning, and they're cutting pieces out of you. So even today, people are suffering many things of physicians. And don't get me wrong, they have their place, right? If, for instance, you break your leg, or you have some kind of trauma, get a cut or whatever, a bad one, you should definitely go there. And even if you're sick, it's a good thing to go there if you need to. But what I'm getting at is God gave us these plants for a reason, okay? If you're there in Isaiah 38, let's get a biblical example of somebody that was sick. Isaiah 38, verse 1. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. That's some pretty bad news. You're already sick, and then somebody tells you you're going to die. And it's the prophet that you trust, right? Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed unto the Lord and said, Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth, with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. Then came the word of the Lord to Isaiah, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. So God heard his prayer, and he's going to add 15 years to his life. Let's drop down to verse 21. For Isaiah had said, Let them take a lump of figs and lay it for a plaister upon the boil, and he shall recover. Okay, so God got Isaiah to use a home remedy, right? He took some figs, and it sounds like he made a poultice of it, like a plaister, I think is another word for plaster, so it's like mushed up. And, they put it upon the boil, and he recovered. And you might think, well, could Hezekiah not have done this on his own? Yes, he could have. Number one, if he would have known what to do. Okay, if he would have known that making a poultice of figs to put on the boil would have recovered his problem. First place, he might not have known what his problem was, right? So he would have had to have known what to do. And you think, I'm preaching a sermon about herbs for the service of man, and here I am up here sick. Okay, my voice is hoarse, and I didn't write this this week. I wrote this before I had a sore throat, and this is a good example of that. You got to know what to do, and then you got to know what to use. You got to know how to use it. You either got to be able to find it in the wild, or you got to be able to buy it. Okay, you got to be strong enough to take it. You got to have the energy, right? And you got to remember to use it. Okay. Now, when you're sick, you sometimes know all sorts of home remedies, or your wife tells you to do something. Let's say take a ginger bath, but you don't have the energy. You don't feel like it. You're sick on the couch, so you just lay there, right? Instead of doing what you know you should do. Or in my case, I started taking some cat's claw. It's a plant, una de gato in Spanish. And it's a really good immune booster, at least in my experience. But the thing it does, it starts making your nose run, okay? At least for me. But it's, it's working. It's making your immune system work overtime. The thing is, you get tired of wiping your nose all the time. Your nose gets sore. So then after a couple of doses of cat's claw, you quit using it because you don't want to put up with that. So even if Isaiah, okay, he had the ingredients were right there, but he needed God to tell him how to do it, okay? You can know the remedy, you can have the stuff on hand, and you can forget to do it. Or you just don't feel like doing it, okay, because you don't have the energy. When somebody's hungry, they talk about people being in a famine. They say, when you're hungry, you only have one problem, and that's that you don't have food. And when you're sick, it feels like you don't. Yeah, you think of other things, but it's just like I should do this, I should do that, but I just want to lay around and rest. And I just woke up an hour ago, but I feel like sleeping again, kind of thing. So yeah, if he would have known. And I'm not taking away from the thing that God did miracles, right? But sometimes the miracle is just in knowing what he should have done. Because I wouldn't doubt it that if you had this same kind of boil that Hezekiah had, and you put a plaister of figs on there, that would help your condition. I don't doubt it for a second. But when you're sick, sometimes you have more than one thing going on too, right? So, and the timing of it too, okay? So the timing might have to be right. But the thing is, it was even easier for Hezekiah than to go and mash up these figs and do that. He just had to ask God, pray to God, and God gave him another 15 years. Okay? So that's easier than knowing all these home remedies and knowing which herbs they are, and not just the name. You got to actually, and if you can't buy it, let's say they make it illegal or something, you got to be able to find it out in the ditches or the field and know what it looks like. And sometimes plants have lookalikes that are poisonous and so on. So, and then you got to know which one it is and how to prepare it, which part of the plant to use and so on. So God can give you that wisdom, and he can give you, if you pray for wisdom, like I talked about on Thursday, God can give you wisdom and let you use these different things, okay? But now, let's say an unbeliever uses these same medicines. Yeah, they can get healing too, okay? But the horse is prepared unto the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord. Okay, you can do what you can do. You shouldn't just, I'm sick, I'm just going to pray to God. You should, if God's giving you the wisdom, you should do something about it, what you know to do. But rely on God. Don't rely on what you are trying to do about it. In 2 Kings chapter 4, there's one of my most favorite stories. I probably say that about other stories too, but this is one of my most favorite stories. Oh, sorry, no, I'm not till that one yet. It's later on. But 2 Kings 4 is where we're going to read some more about, gathering some wild edibles. 2 Kings 4, verse 38. And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land. Okay, dearth means you don't have enough moisture. And the sons of the prophet were sitting before him, and he said unto his servant, Set on the great pot and seethe pottage for the sons of the prophets. And when it says it's a great pot, that doesn't mean it's some fancy pampered chef pot. It just means there's a big pot. Great means big. Okay? So, obviously you got to feed some people. And seethe pottage for the sons of the prophets. Verse 39. And one went out in the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds, his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. And if you don't know what a gourd is, and I'm not a gardener, but I think it's something like zucchini, I think pumpkin is a gourd maybe, and things like that, squash, wouldn't they all be called gourds? I think so. And so they found some on a wild vine, and they shredded into the pot of pottage. And he says, for they knew them not. They didn't take I don't know what these ones are, so they'll put those in the stew. No, they put them in there accidentally because they didn't know that they were bad. Verse 40. So they poured out for the men to eat, and it came to pass as they were eating of the pottage that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot, and they could not eat thereof. So they took poisonous plants. They shouldn't have used poisonous plants. Poisonous gourds. And so, I guess while they're eating, he recognizes this. So the one guy that was eating must have recognized what it was, or felt some ill effect. In verse 41, but he said, Then bring meal, and he cast it into the pot, and he said, Pour out for the people that they may eat, and there was no harm in the pot. Now, definitely, this could just be 100% miracle, or it could be a miracle as in God gave him the wisdom to know what to put this meal in the pot because there's poison, and the meal would somehow counteract the poison. So, if they would have known this to begin with, they could have added this meal in, right? But if they would have known this to begin with, they maybe wouldn't have put those gourds in there in the first place, right? So, just like Hezekiah and the figs, the ingredients were already there, okay? They're right in front of their nose, but the thing is, if you don't have that wisdom, it's not going to help you anything. So this was a poisonous plant. There are poisonous plants, and you think, well, I thought you said all plants have a use. Well, maybe their use is to be poison. But the other thing is, certain poisons aren't poisonous to you under certain conditions, I've heard. Okay? I wouldn't recommend this, but I heard a story of a guy that went to get... I just wouldn't recommend it because I'm not a doctor or anything. But a guy that had cancer, he went down to, I think it was cancer, or was it some other illness? He went down to Mexico to get treated and you know, Mexico seems to use different methods than we do here. Maybe they're not worried about getting sued. And anyways, they went down there to be treated of this, and you know, he's taking this thing, and the guy that told him to take this internally, he says, only use it until you'll know when to quit using it, when you notice something wrong. And so he starts using it, and then all of a sudden one day it just, he had a bad reaction to it, or like it just didn't seem right. But he got better, and then he told the doctor or whoever this guy was that told him, yeah, he says that's when you stop. And apparently what he had used was like snake venom or something like that. So like I said, I wouldn't recommend using that. But even poison like that, they used. And like I said, I'm not recommending poison. But I think even poison, like stuff that we have as poisonous plants, under the right conditions, maybe they're not poison, or under the right dose. For instance, you only need a very little bit of a habanero pepper, okay? Whereas a bell pepper, you could eat the whole pepper and no problem. So maybe there's some plants you just need a little bit in a whole big pot, and then it's not poisonous. People say arsenic is poisonous. Well, it is, right? But yet, did you know there's arsenic in apple seeds and apricot seeds and things like that? And actually, I think, isn't that called B17? They give it a vitamin name. So under low doses like are found in those seeds, I mean, I'm not dead yet. I eat the seeds because I've heard there's health benefits. Seeds are pretty bitter. You'd only eat them. You wouldn't eat them for the taste. You'd only eat them because they're good for you. So there's an idea out there that God has, wherever there's a poisonous plant, within a certain distance, He has the antidote to that poison plant growing around there. And that might be true. I don't know. There's this. I'll read you part of this. This article. It says one of the only antidotes to the poisonous black sap from the Mexican, and I'll probably not pronounce this right, but Chechian tree, is nectar from another tree called chaca, which grows very near it. Okay, so there's this one tree. The black sap is poisonous, but one of the only antidotes is this other tree that grows close by. From this Mayan legend has grown the lore that in the wild, every poison is accompanied by an antidote within the radius of human vision. For example, for poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac, the jewel weed grows nearby. The antidote horsetail plant grows very near stinging nettle. And, I've not researched this. I don't even know what horsetail looks like, but when you grab stinging nettle the wrong way, you get burned, right? Or get a rash or a burn. But even stinging nettle on its own isn't poisonous. At least I know of people that make tea out of it and drink it. So I wouldn't doubt it if God has made, at least maybe not within the visual area, but if God has made for every poison, He's made a cure. One that now these aren't both plants, but plantain. When I get a bee sting, I look for plantain because I've tried it and it works. You take some plantain, and I like to just chew it up so it's moist and then rub it on and pretty soon it doesn't sting anymore. Okay? And you think that's an accident that God has made something like that will take that away? So herb is for the service of man. Obviously some is for food, like dill, it's to spice your food. Peppers is, a really good spice if you like spicy stuff. And so on, like even garlic. You don't eat garlic and you just eat a whole clove, unless you, or whatever, if you like that kind of thing. But you would use it in moderation in with your food, with your shrimp, maybe garlic butter or whatever. So, let's look at Exodus 15. Exodus 15. In Exodus 15, verse 22, that's where we'll start. Exodus 15:22, the Bible says, So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and wilt give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. So here they are, they're murmuring against Moses because they don't know what they're going to drink, because the water's bitter. Maybe it's alkali or something like that, you know. And they're complaining again. And really, they wouldn't have to complain, because the next campsite they came to, there's Elim, and there's 12 wells of water, and there's 70 palm trees. Okay, so they have good water, and they camp there. So just a little bit further. It was like right there. The other thing is, God showed Moses this tree, which he threw in there, and somehow it filtered or balanced the pH of the water or something like that, and then they could drink it. So help was right close there, as in that tree was there to throw in there. They didn't know what to do, though. They needed God to tell them. And also the next campsite was good water. Now, you think, why am I preaching about herb for the service of man? Well, one, I like that subject, okay? But the other one is, help can be so close, and if you don't know what to do, then you're helpless, right? You sometimes think, if I only had such and such, okay? But if somebody doesn't know how to use whatever that thing is, it's useless to you, okay? Let's, for instance, say in a fire. Okay, it's just a small fire, but I'm from a different country, and I don't even know what your fire extinguishers look like. But if I knew, I could have just grabbed it and quickly put it out, right? But if I have no idea what that thing is that's strapped to the wall, it doesn't help me anything. So what I'm getting at is, help can be so nearby and so close sometimes, and we're still helpless. I don't know about you, but I've heard a lot of stories about fires, because I used to be a firefighter. And you hear about stories where people are they're within so close of an exit, and they die from some smoke inhalation or something in a fire. They were so close to making it, or just because they were disoriented and they couldn't make it out. What about people dying in a snowstorm? They go out to look for help, and for some reason when you're walking in a blizzard, so many people circle, right? Because they think they're going straight, but they make corrections, and they're within their vehicle again, or so close to the barn or the house that they could have gotten shelter. It was right there, but they couldn't see it. They're so close. Okay? Now, what about this? People that die and go to hell. Jesus already paid for their sins. Okay? Jesus already paid for it. All you got to do is accept that free gift. It's sitting right there. But they don't know how to do it, or they don't trust to do it. They don't trust it when somebody says, hey, that's the antidote for what's going to happen to you. Okay? So even that, the help is right there. You just got to take that gift. It's already there. You don't have to go looking for it. You just got to believe it. In Hebrews 4 verse 2, the Bible says, For unto us was the gospel preached as well unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. Okay? So those other people heard the gospel too, but it didn't help them anything because they didn't believe. So they both got the same preaching, but one believed and one didn't. In Psalm 127, verse 1 and 2, the Bible says, Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. So just imagine, okay, I heard now, okay, herb is for the service of man. I'm going to take this master's course, and wild plant identification and edible plants and find out what's good for what problem and so on. I'm going to be so smart. And if I ever get sick, I'm going to know what to do. Well, what if God takes away your wisdom right then? You're still not going to know what to do, okay? We got to rely on the Lord. It's vain for you to rise up early to sit up late to eat the bread of sorrows, okay? So God's got to be in it. And I'm saying that's a good idea to know that, okay? But don't rely on yourself, rely on God. Now getting back to the healthcare system, treating the symptom and not the cause, okay? Like for instance, a headache is not a Tylenol deficiency. In our own lives, we often want to treat the symptom and not the cause. Now, I'm not saying people in this congregation have these problems, but what about people that are depressed, right? Well, I guess that means you have an alcohol or a drug deficiency, right? That's how people, I'm depressed, therefore I got to do something, so I got to, drink beer or smoke marijuana. That's the wrong way to think about it. What is the problem? Problem isn't that you're depressed. You're depressed because of some situation in your life, something you're missing, missing God, or something bad happened to you, but you need God. You don't need alcohol. You don't need drugs. What about finances? Okay, so, and I've gone through this, right, where your finances are bad, and then our earthly brain thinks, well, I just got to work harder. I just got to make more money. Yeah, from an earthly standpoint, that's true. But the thing is, if you're just earning money and putting it into a bag with holes that falls out, and God's blowing on it, like I think it's in Haggai where he talks about it, making more money doesn't solve the problem. Going to God solves the problem. And then he'll rebuke the devourer for our sake, and then, you'll actually get somewhere. So even in our own life, we sometimes we treat the symptom and not the root cause of the problem. Now, 2 Kings chapter 6. That's the story I was talking about. That's one of my favorite. 2 Kings chapter 6. You can turn there. So herb is for the service of man, but you got to know what to do, and you got to be able to identify. I know. Yeah, if I have a cold or. Yeah, I have a cold, I need echinacea, but if you have no idea what that plant looks like, or you just, I think that one looks like it would have that name, and all of a sudden you take poison, right? You got to know what to do. If you don't have the eyes to see, just knowing the name doesn't help you nothing if you can't match that up with a plant. 2 Kings 6, verse 11. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king. But Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he hither horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. Just imagine, you're sending a big army for one guy, and they surround the city by night. That would be intimidating. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. Excuse me. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. So again, help was right there. They just couldn't see it. The angels were already there on the hills, surrounding them. There's more of them than there was surrounding Elisha and his servant. But Elisha's servant couldn't see it. And physically with his eyes, I don't know if Elisha saw it either, but he had faith and he knew that God was protecting him. And he prayed so that his servant could see it. Just imagine being that guy's servant and saying, wow. And There's a lot of help. We don't see everything. God's got angels around us right now, okay? And not just that. Jesus tells us, if there were 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there he is among them. Jesus is here among us. And we don't see it with our eyes, but, we got to have that faith and know that help is there, and even though we can't see it, right? And I'm just going to skip some of this for sake of time and for the sake of my voice. But what I'm getting at is with the herbs are for the service of man. Yes, they are. Okay, but you got to know which ones to use, when to use it. Have the strength to actually take it in the memory, right? You got these. Take ginkgo biloba for memory loss, but you got to remember to take them. But you got memory loss, so how are you going to remember to take them, right? Unless you got a wife that's got better memory. So Deuteronomy 28. I'm just going to pick a few verses out of Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 has a long list of curses, and they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. Their fruit of their body is cursed. Their food is cursed. They're cursed with pestilence and consumption, inflammation and fever, and all these different things. Let's look at verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. So that's why all these curses came upon them. Cursing their food, their children, and basically everything you can think of got cursed. And I say got cursed. At this time it hadn't happened yet, but later on it did, because they did, didn't serve God with gladness of heart. And if you go up to verse 1, so that was the bad news, but he did give the good news first. I gave the bad news first today. In verse 1, it says, And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. And then it goes through basically the same list, but in a good way. Okay, so if you do listen to God, all these blessings will come on you. But if you don't, and this was to the children of Israel, right? But everything is written for our admonition too. But if you don't, then all these bad things will happen to you. Now that doesn't mean something bad happens to somebody, they're not following God. What about that blind man that Jesus healed? Who sinned, him or his parents? None, right? It was for the glory of God. And so if somebody's sick, we don't just go say, hey, you got sin in your life, you got to clean up. Well, it might be true, but it's not up to us to go point that out, right? When you get sick, that's maybe, anytime. You shouldn't wait till you're sick to start examining your life and see, if you're not doing things quite right or whatever. But just like when people are in a boat, the waves start getting windy. I can't see how there would be an atheist in a storm on the ocean. Like when the waves are like a few times higher than the height of your boat, or just as long as your long ship is. That's how high the waves are higher. I can't see how there'd be an atheist that would go through that. Let's go to Psalm 81. Go to Psalm 81. And we're just about done here. Psalm 81. Psalm 81. Sing aloud unto God our strength. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. Take a psalm and bring hither the timbrel, the pleasant harp with the psaltery. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where he heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah. Hear, O my people, and I will testify unto thee, O Israel, if thou wilt hearken unto me. There shall no strange God be in thee, neither shalt thou worship any strange God. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. It's like when you're feeding a kid. Open your mouth, and God's gonna fill it. You promised it. But we got to serve him, right? But my people would not hearken to my voice, and Israel would not to me. Like when you're trying to feed a kid and they've had enough of that kind, and you try to do the airplane thing and they just don't get tricked. But then what you do is you try to take a cookie, and then just before they close their mouth, you quickly put it in the peas or whatever, and that only works so and so long as well, right? So, but God wants to, he's telling them, open your mouth so I can fill it, but they didn't want to listen to him, okay? So I gave them up unto their own heart's lust, and they walked in their own counsels. Oh, that my people had hearkened unto me, and Israel had walked in my ways. I should soon have subdued their enemies and turned my hand against their adversaries. The haters of the Lord should have submitted themselves unto him, but their time should have endured forever. He should have fed them also with the finest of the wheat, with honey out of the rock should I have satisfied thee. And I think it was last Sunday we sang that song, Honey in the Rock. That's, I think, where they get this. He wanted to feed them with the finest of the wheat. He was going to take honey out of the rock to satisfy them. And how likely are you to find honey in a rock? If it's inside the rock, how are you going to find it? Well, maybe it's in a cave or something, whatever. It's hidden. And God can find, he's got storehouses of whatever. Like when the children of Israel were murmuring and they wanted to eat flesh, right? They wanted meat. All of a sudden, just quails came up, and it was I think 3 cubits high, as far as you could go, whichever direction in the camp for a day's travel or something like that. And where did God get all that stuff from to do? And obviously that was to curse them. So a lot of them died while the flesh was still in their teeth. But where did God find all that? He had them somewhere, or he just made them like that. But most likely he had them somewhere. Or when he took, he brought all these grasshoppers into Egypt. He probably already had them somewhere, or he made them, right? But what I'm getting at is there's so many hidden things in this life, but they won't benefit us anything unless God allows us to see it. Herb is for the service of man, but you got to know what to do, okay? There's hidden manna in the Bible, but if you're reading with a blindfold, you're unsaved, you're not going to see it. The Bible says, he that overcometh, he will give to eat of the hidden manna. And that's paraphrasing, that's not quoting. Let's go to Revelation chapter 22. Almost done here. Revelation 22. Last chapter in your Bible. Revelation 22, verse 1. The Bible says, and he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. So imagine a tree that every month it has a different fruit on it. You don't got to wait a whole year till you get fruit on it. Every month we'll be able to go pick something. And not just that, it says the leaves are for the healing of the nations. Okay? So if there's something wrong with you, you can go take a leaf of that, maybe make a tea or whatever God will have us to do. It's for the healing of the nations. And did you know, this is the tree of life. It's on the earth right now. But there's angels guarding it. Remember back in the Garden of Eden, God put these angels with swords in every direction that nobody can find it. And I believe it's actually underwater right now because it talks about loosing the angels that were in the, I forget which river it was. Maybe it was Euphrates, maybe a different one. But anyway, what we need is right there, healing of the nations, but we can't get at it. Even if we could see it, we still couldn't get to it because the angels aren't going to let us get at it. Okay? But once we get to heaven, that's going to be there. It's going to be for us. We can eat from the fruits, and it's for the healing of the nations. Adam and Eve weren't supposed to, but then at this time when we come there, we will be allowed to partake from that. It's for the healing of the nations. You think, well, why would it be for the healing of the nations? I thought there was going to be no sickness or anything. Well, let's look at Revelation 21, verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. So here, when New Jerusalem comes down from heaven, it's going to land on earth somehow, miraculously, obviously. He's going to, at that point in time, we can still have sorrow, because it says God is going to wipe the tears from our eyes, right, in verse 4. And then after that, there will be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. We're never going to be sad after that point, okay? It says you will not have any more pain after that, okay? For the former things are passed away. But yet, here in Revelation 22, it says for the healing of the nations. Well, it could be a preventative medicine, right? It could be, you just start seeing some symptoms here. You got to take some of that, and you won't get sick. Okay, because you're guaranteed you won't get sick. And there's no more death. I shouldn't say you'll never get sick. I don't know. To me, it seems like there's no more pain, so you wouldn't get sick, because sick has pain. But it doesn't mean you wouldn't start noticing something's off and know, I need that leaf off that tree. Just like when some people have like a cafeteria style minerals for their animals. They have like 12 different kinds. And I'm going to take a drink of water. And they let the cattle take as many as they want from one, because they know, as long as they don't mix it with something that tastes really good, they know which one they need. And I think at this point in time, we're going to know when we need to take, a leaf and make some tea or whatever like that. But it's never going to get to a point where we actually get sick or where we get pain, but it's still for the healing of the nations. So there's got to be something that it's healing. We don't know what, but we're not going to have any sorrow, So we're not going to get all the way sick, because you would have sorrow about that, right? So we'll find out when we get to that how that exactly works, what that means, healing of the nations. But if we had that tree right now, if we could get a leaf, we would, we'd be good forever. If we could always get to that tree of life. But guess what? Adam and Eve, that's why that tree got taken away, so they couldn't get to that tree. And the tree is still there, we just can't get to it. Okay? And that can happen with any of these other herbs that we need, or God can take away your understanding. You get forgetful, and which one was I supposed to take? So the answer is often right there, but we still need God, right? God gave us these herbs to service to man, but you can prepare all you want, you can prep all you want. If God doesn't allow you to work out that way, then it's not going to work out. And on the other hand, if you just couldn't get prepared at all, God can still allow it so that everything works out for you too. So let's pray. Thank you, God, for gathering this group of people here. Thank you for allowing our voice to go out, and help us to see the benefits of what you have prepared for us. You give us the herbs in this world for our food and for our healing. Help us learn about that, but also put our faith in you and trust in you, and not rely on our own selves for anything. Help us that we can spread the message of the gospel, because we know you sent your son to die for everybody, but if it's not mixed with faith, it doesn't help them anything. It's right there. So bless us.